So, we're 2 episodes in, and hopefully at this point we understand how to open Loenn and how to fill our map with pretty things.
No, I said pretty things! Go back and try again!
With the handy playlist I've got down below in the description in case you've stumbled upon this video before the others. Speaking of stumbling, let's stumble into some more rigorous Loenn mapping training. Don't worry, this list is very straightforward and simple.
Only 2 things?
How hard can it? Ugh, guys, there's a reason why I'm making a whole video about entities. Celeste is entirely too flexible with how you can use this stuff. But first,
there's been an update to Loenn! We are officially in 1.0.0 of the mapping software, and it has a lot of awesome improvements and fixes, including a fix for what I mentioned at the end of the last video. No more exploding windows, yippee! So all you gotta do is hit that gear and hit update. There's been another update because it's tough to have a major release and expect everything to go out as planned. In the future, just make sure you've got the latest version of Loenn by coming to this gear in the menu, especially if it has this exclamation mark. Anyway, we have a tutorial to get through, so let's download that latest update and get back to our list. Now, that thing. What is that? We know what Everest is, but YAML? In the last video, we skimmed over how to get rid of any other asset besides the vanilla ones in our toolbox by going to View, Dependencies Only, and checking off all the boxes. But what if there are some custom assets you want to use that you saw working in a modded map you've played? See, this is where helpers come in. Olympus doesn't just have its fair share of maps you can download, but it also has these helpers which contain a lot of cool stuff, including, for our current purposes, cool entities. You'll see that pretty often, custom maps depend on these helpers and require you to download them alongside the map itself for custom entities, triggers, and mechanics to function properly. That means that helpers are dependents, which also means that they are a dependency for custom maps. Hence, dependencies only. You can download these helpers to get the cool custom entities, but hang on. We currently have dependencies on the vanilla assets set up by default, but what if we could include this helper as a dependency? Yes, you got it. Everest.yaml has got you covered. After downloading a map with these helpers as dependencies or downloading the helpers alone, give a quick restart to Loenn if you had it open while downloading them. Then you can navigate to the top bar and click on Map, Dependencies, and as long as you're not a little Celeste mod gremlin like I am, you'll easily be able to locate the helper of your choice. In this case, I want to use some of the crazy entities going on in the jungle helper created by, so I'll click Add Dependency, and yippee, it's a dependency. You can definitely go deeper in the weeds with the everest.yaml, but for now, I think the most important bits of it are adding dependencies, as we just did, and knowing where it's located if you want to look at the data itself. And that'll be right here in our folder structure for the mod that we built out from the first episode. Now we get to use our lovely entities from this helper, alongside all of these other ones. Oh boy, here comes the fun part. Let's bring our entities from the last video into here so we can get to organizing. There's 4 categories which I believe are pretty fitting to break these down into. Stuff that can kill you, stuff that can move you, stuff that can confuse you, and stuff that you can collect. While a ton of these entities are fairly straightforward drag and drops, a ton of these absolutely aren't. Arguably the most important entity to mention, which can be found in 99.99999% of Celeste maps, are the good old spinners. You'd think that a pointy thing screaming would be simple to use, but oh no. Since you'll be using these almost all the time, let's go over some good habits to have in implementing spinners. First, we need to get these set up in a brand new room. And there's already an issue. Do you see the problem here? Actually, there's 2. The first one's on me. I should have told you about this silly problem sooner. And that second silly problem is the fact that all the arrows around this new room are in red. What I had failed to mention in the earlier videos is that Celeste has some room size constraints it likes to abide by. The minimum size we want to give a room is 40 in width and 23 in height, or else we can start running into some serious issues. You can have the freedom to throw whatever you want in here, but make sure to keep these minimums in mind if you're clicking and dragging to create rooms. Now that we have an appropriately sized room, here's a floor, and here's a configuration of spinners. Here's a configuration of spinners. Here's a configuration of spinners. I'd like to encourage you to experiment with placing these spinners to see how they look, but all of these look awful. If we really want to make a statement and place them however, then by all means be my guest. But there is a reason why the vanilla Celeste maps and their copious spinners look appealing and natural. The strategic placement of these spinners follows a certain set of rules, and it's so ingrained in Celeste map-making philosophy that it's been codified as spinner law. So watch closely. It really
is that simple. And to drive home this point, let me also include these spinner configurations and show you how they look after being loaded in. Yep, those look wonderful! Bad. But for this one with the 3 spinners, you can see that they've connected to look like an impenetrable wall. When spinners are spaced out properly, it just does this for you upon loading. It even works with some wacky diagonal directions. So for the sake of everyone's eyes, keep it simple and it'll look great, or else you'll land on this lovely page in the Celestecord. I kid. It's actually a wonderful place you should join to commune with other fantastic modders who are significantly more talented than I am. One last quick note on the placement of these things. If you want to add them to any moving entities, you can place them on top of the moving entity, but remember to right-click and check off this box that says Attach to Solid. Hopefully I just saved you many minutes of frustration if you ran into this issue and couldn't figure out why it wasn't working. Something you may have noticed through all this mapping progress we're making. It's so annoying to keep clicking the buttons in the top right to switch between all the different tools we need to use. If you're trying to switch which room you're working in, then go back to throwing in more entities, these mouse swipes back and forth are simply a waste of time. So that's where good old hotkeys make a grand appearance. As a video editor, I live and breathe hotkeys. It's the only way to maintain my sanity. My biggest recommendation to mapping is to use these early so you can build the muscle memory for it. Specifically 2 and 3. 2 placements, 3 selection. 2 placements, 3 selection. The less time you have to swing your mouse back and forth between the toolbox and placement of entities, the better. If you gotta switch what keys these are binded to, go to the Edit tab, and under Settings, you got all your hotkeys listed right here. Then go ahead and do whatever it takes to make it more comfortable. While on the topic of hotkeys, R, L, H, and V are all very useful hotkeys for entities where the direction they face matters, like springs, spikes, and a few other directional entities. You got R to turn them to the right or clockwise, if you will, L for left or counterclockwise, H for horizontal flipping. Well, this one is mirrored, so turn it with R, then yay, horizontal flipping, and V for vertical flip. Press L. Okay. V for vertical flipping. If you want any more hotkeys than this, then aren't you adventurous? The Loenn's README is perfect for you. I'll have a link down to that in the description. You can also take a look at this from the same place you updated Loenn through the gear icon in Olympus. Okay, I've had enough dealing with these things that are just out to kill us. Let's get into the fun movement entities. Now, as far as movement goes, the game is chock full of entities that can do this. But in this case, what I'm talking about are entities that force you into a direction in some way. This means Bubbles, the bird, and even the Battlin' Orb, more accurately known as Battlin' Boost in this menu. We'll be focusing on that last one here since it's definitely more confusing to set up than Bubbles, but definitely less confusing than that damn bird. Why do they gotta work this way? Throw 2 of those orbs into your room, give it a right click, and you'll see plenty of checkboxes. But I didn't just choose Battlin' Boost for its checkboxes. There's a small issue we have to address here. If we jump into the first Battlin' Boost now, we'll get boosted up as if she was the last one hit. But what the heck? We have the other one chilling right over there. And this is exactly the issue I ran into while trying to write this dang script, because guess what? The functionality is hidden. Or at least, there's no way to even know it exists unless you got lucky enough to spot something called nodes here in the hotkeys window. And then I made an oopsie by mindlessly repeatedly hitting this hotkey, not realizing I needed to be on the selection tool in the toolbox when I'm trying to make a node for a supported entity. After killing 20 minutes and losing some more of my sanity, we finally discovered nodes, which are very important for entities like zip movers, fireballs, and what we've got right here, Battlin' Boosts. Again, please make sure you've got the selection tool selected, then click on Battlin', press N, and you'll start seeing double. That double boost is actually a node which Battlin' will travel to after hitting the first boost like we've seen in Summit. Just be careful! You can press whatever button you have mapped to delete in the hotkeys menu in order to get rid of each individual node, but if you delete the OG entity, it deletes all of the nodes, including itself. Just be aware of that as you make adjustments. In the same vein, if you copy and paste that entity that has nodes, all the subsequent nodes will be copied as well. There's so much more to explore with nodes and checkboxes with so many other entities like dash switches and swap blocks, so if you're ever looking for a feature you feel like is missing from the entity, right-click it, or click on the selection tool and press N, even though that frustrates me slightly. Use those tooltips you learned about in the last video to see what they mean. Go nuts! There's even nodes for triggers like camera target, rumble, but this part of the video is on entities, so stop looking! Now, it's hard not to have fun when you're moving really fast. Like, really, really fast. But Celeste is also known for some interesting puzzling. And mods, even more so. That's where entities like these ones come into play. Because Jungle Helper is really cool, let's find something we can use from it. Wow, almost as if it was scripted into existence. Is a mighty convenient way to search for entities from helpers that I can teach you, but I'll have to charge. Using the @ symbol followed by the name of the helper, we'll find everything we could ever ask for. Maybe a little bit too much. I'll cut to the chase since I know what I want, and it's this switch gate with a wooden aesthetic so we can break up all this, whatever aesthetic you'd like to call this. It's been a minute since we saved, so let's hit that, well, any additional windows popping up when I hit save is never a good sign. Detected missing dependencies. So, what this is trying to tell us is that we're stupid. So what this is trying to tell us is that we're using an entity from a mod that we didn't add as a dependency. So if we click yes and we take a look here.
Care to explain?
Remember, you have to enable the helpers you want to use in your map for them to load successfully. So add that helper in again, and you should be good to go. Other than the naming being slightly different, it's just like the good old vanilla switch gate we know and love. Sometimes helpers can have unique entities with some funky properties that I'm not touching with a 10-foot pole. I just wanted you to have access to the fun world of entities in these helpers. If you need any more info on entities either in or out of the helpers you're using, Snip recommends this lovely catalog you can check out in the description. Trust me, there's a lot. But at least it really speaks to how talented the Celeste modding community is. It's time to enter some dangerous territory. This final but very important section revolves around collectibles, the hearts and souls of raising the stakes in platforming, putting really difficult and maybe even obnoxious obstacles between them and the player. And there's no better way to explore this topic than with the iconic strawberries. Alright, let's get this berry in here. Good. Now right click on that berry. You know what? I was expecting worse. Let's bring the other stuff in. All right, that's enough for now. Back to right-clicking on the berry. We've only got 2 checkboxes for Moon and Winged, which, if you've beaten the game through Farewell, I'm sure you've seen at some point. Except, apparently you can have a winged moonberry, and it has its own sprite. Huh. Pretty cool. Let's try that again. Better! Also, you may have noticed that the berry hasn't been collected yet upon landing. And if you remember me slamming the entities into the screen, one of them was called Strawberry Blockfield, which is how you can really piss off your players by forcing them to land somewhere else in order to collect their berries. I don't hate myself that much, so I've made it easy on myself by making the room to the left a safe area where I can collect my berries. We've also got the checkpoint ID and order fields that we can use to organize this fun section we've always seen in the vanilla maps. But thankfully, Everest does take care of the order of berries based on the alphabetical order of the rooms. So we've got nothing to worry about for now since our naming conventions were straightened out back in the first episode. Right. Lastly, we've got the good old heart. If you right click on it, there actually isn't much here. The more important thing to note about the heart is found back in our favorite menu under the map tab. Metadata! Under general, you'll see this end level on heart checkbox. And yeah, I mean, what else will I say about it? That's all there is to it, and all there is I want to talk about for the time being with entities. While I could send you on your merry way to start obscuring your room with entities galore, there's one issue with the room I've just created. It's too damn tall, which means traveling through sections like this has so much up and down movement.
Oh god. Is gonna make me vomit. We need to fix this ASAP.
And the best way to do it is with this teeny tiny last section of our placement category, which has funny little objects known as camera triggers. Yes, you can look at this now. What happens behind the scenes is just as important as what's visible to the player. But before we get into those triggers, there's some behavior with Battlein that's going to make working with camera triggers really annoying. If you right click on the orb, she actually has a lock camera property, which does exactly what it says. If I manage to skip the orb and try progressing the room, she simply won't let me. So look out for this setting if you're having camera locking issues without any triggers in sight. But now with that out of the way, let's start off with our camera offset trigger. We basically want the same effect as Battlein's lock camera effect,
except I want to have more control over how the camera's reacting to improve our visibility in each of these sections.
So first things first, what does camera offset do? I've put a camera offset trigger along this whole vertical here and set the camera to Y to, I don't know, -100 for camera Y. And okay, that's not what we want. What about -50? Oh, that's still weird. Something like -20 should work just fine then, right? Nope. -10?
Nope.
Okay, what about just -3? Yeah, let's stick with that. We can think of the current camera placement as a normalized position, not too high, low, left, or right. Using camera X and Y, we can move the camera around the bounds of the room. So negative X values make the camera hug the left wall of the room, positive X values hug the right wall, and so of course positive Y values will hug the ground. And negative Y values hug the ceiling. I'm not gonna explain this, I have more Loenn to talk about. Let's delete this one and see what the other triggers have got for us. Moving on to the camera target. This one has a funny nub attached to it that looks oddly familiar to— oh, that's basically a node! The fun thing about this trigger is that not only can we set a position for Madeline to pass through it, but we can also point the camera in exactly the direction we want to focus on. For instance, let's place the trigger in the gap Madeline tosses us through, and then place this node somewhere in the middle of this area. Will that do the trick? Oh God, what the heck was that? While the camera offset trigger changes the position of the camera permanently after passing through it, the camera target requires you to be in the target zone the whole time. We can make this work by making the zone of focus really big, which looks silly in the editor, but how silly can it be if it works? They're annoying, but very useful, especially for larger rooms. So give them a try and figure out a better solution than mine. Honestly, it'd probably be easier just to turn on the camera lock in the battle orb settings, but lastly, but not leastly, especially for a room this beastly. If we die halfway through the room, and it's a tough room, it can be pretty infuriating to start from the very beginning. And this only gets worse for super large rooms like this one. The way to remedy this is with one last trigger called Change Respawn, which, just read! Whenever you pass through the zone, the room reevaluates where the nearest spawn point is to the trigger, and thus upon dying, you make it back to that closer respawn. Love an easy explanation to wrap up the episode. Now you've got an idea of how dependencies work, and also have access to all the entities your heart desires from your favorite mods. Oh, and a few triggers sprinkled on top in case you really want to go crazy. But now, for the next episode. It's not gonna be anything too special, just the most requested thing that I can't seem to stop getting questions about. Style Grounds. So, if it isn't out yet, why don't you subscribe to find out what the deal is with that? And if it is, get on out of here because, wow, it really is a tricky subject. No wonder I get so many questions about it. But I think you should still subscribe. Thank you to all my patrons. Amazing people. I teach them how to speedrun. Come join if you feel like it. Until next time, thank you for mapping along with me. Bye-bye.